Los Angeles, 2029 AD. The machines rose from the ashes of the nuclear fire. Their war to exterminate mankind had raged for decades. But the final battle would not be fought in the future. It would be fought here in our present tonight. Welcome to Couch Potato Theater here on the Fandom Podcast Network. My name is Kevin. I'll be one of your hosts. We're going to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Terminator 1984. And I got some wonderful co-hosts here to help me out with this. And first and foremost, I think that we need to get my co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network on here, Mr. Kyle Wagner. What's going on, buddy? Hello?
Kevin, you told me we were method acting this podcast, and you told me part of that was when we first appear on the podcast, we were supposed to be naked.
Oh yeah, sorry, that's wrong memo there, dude. So
okay, yeah.
Should I come back to you? So
yeah. See what he does to me here, folks. I am excited for this podcast, but I have one real problem, Kevin.
What's that, sir?
Before we started this podcast, I looked in the phone book. I'm the only Kyle Wagner in the phone book, so I'm not liking my chances of surviving this podcast very long.
Yeah, you're toast, dude. So he'll find you. All right, well, let's bring on some more help here. I'd like to, of course, welcome our co-host of Time Warp and, of course, guest on many of our other podcasts here, the queen of movie foo, Miss Lacey Adderhold. What's going on?
Not a whole lot. How are you guys?
Doing good. All right, you excited?
Wait, she's dressed, Kevin.
I know.
I'm dressed fancy. Wait a second. What?
She is rocking the FPN Fandom Podcast Network shirt, which I should probably mention. This episode is being brought to you by Technor Nightclub down on Pico in Los Angeles. So there you go. All right, guys. Now, I can't continue. I got to bring on this other person here. If I didn't, I would hear about it. There's a list. Don't want to go into that right now. But, of course, I'd love to welcome my lovely wife, Erin Gale. What's going on?
G'day, mate.
She did it.
Oh, the payback for that's going to come much later for you, my friend.
Yeah, from sunny Australia at the moment, midday. The sun is out. I have to say it's lovely. So
we haven't podcasted in a while.
I'm actually in the future.
Yeah. This is true.
Which is now being repaid to you guys because we're all getting our movies before you.
Yeah, that's right. You got to see some stuff before us. So yeah, I'm a
know.
little jealous about that. Yeah. Well, it's good to have you. Kyle?
I just wanted to say too, Kevin, because there's something special about this podcast because we're doing something kind of special with Couch Potatoes Theaters here over the next few weeks.
Well, yeah, I was going to get into that, but yeah, okay. If you want to go ahead and lead us into what is that about, Kyle?
Well, we started it a few weeks ago, actually before you went to Australia, Kevin, because there's a bunch of movies coming out on 4K that are all James Cameron movies, and I just wanted to flash back because we started this whole thing off with True Lies, and now we're doing Terminator, and I will let you continue because I know where you're going to put it. What's coming, but I just wanted to let people know that this is a little bit of James Cameron tribute time here at the Fandom Podcast Network.
It's twofold, actually, if you think about it, Kyle, because yes, we are celebrating some James Cameron's film. We recently, of course, did True Lies, celebrating its anniversary. But yeah, James Cameron's like, I got to get my shit out on 4K. Let's do it. And boom, a bunch came out. And of course, yes, we are talking about Schwarzenegger here in the Terminator, celebrating its 40th anniversary. We got Abyss coming out as well, Kyle. But also, if you think about it, we've been celebrating this year of time travel here on the Fandom Podcast Network. And one of the most famous time travel movies of all time is, of course, Terminator. So there you go.
Well, very much so.
As I mentioned, this is the Fandom Podcast Network, and we are discussing, of course, the Terminator 1984. And we've recently done a lot of fun podcasts here at Couch Potato Theater, celebrating a lot of anniversaries and special days. And, of course, we had one of our good ones. We had Roadhouse celebrating its anniversary, and we had Anthony DeLonge's friend of the network, who's also one of the co-stars. We celebrated The Mummy. We did Deadpool month. We did Deadpool 1 and 2. And recently, as I mentioned, we did True Lies. We also celebrated time travel with The Edge of Tomorrow / Live, Die, Repeat. And recently, we've dropped Spinal Tap. And coming soon, we've got Abyss. Aliens and Aliens Expanded, and we're going to be doing John Wick, Johnny Dangerously, and celebrating Christmas with The Long Kiss Goodnight. We are here to talk about some Terminator here on Couch Potato Theater. And I love looking at these old posters, guys. I went and checked out some of the European releases. And Aaron, I don't know if I found the Australian version, but from what you remember, what kind of press was Terminator getting when it came to posters and copy?
Not a lot. This was just going to go to the story on how I saw it.
Okay, well, hold on to that for a second, because I'm going to ask you about that, because you had mentioned that to me. But before we do that, though, Lacey, yes. We didn't know this at the time, but when we scheduled this recording for this Couch Potato Theater for Terminator 1984, we didn't realize it was actually being released on this day on 4K. I'm still waiting for the Amazon driver to drop off my copy, literally. Yes. It's saying between 6 and 10 p.m. tonight, but you got yours, and I'd like you to kind of showcase that for a sec right now.
I got mine. It's an hour and 47 minutes long, and I got mine an hour and 52 minutes before we started this podcast. So I had actually started watching my original copy just so I could have it fresh. I got half an hour into it before this showed up on my doorstep. So cool little sleeve, which is nice. It's not lenticular or anything, but it's just it's a nice sleeve. And I don't know if we're going to be able to get the glare off of this, but the disc itself is really cool. It's the skull.
Oh, nice.
Can you see that with the little bit
of...
Yeah,
it's popping.
So it's got there we go. That's a good shot, but it's got the skull, which is kind of cool. Also, it has what looks to be, I did a comparison on just on the backs of the discs of the cases, and it looks like there may be 2 new special features on the 4K, and one of them from the original is not on there. So I'm actually probably going to keep both copies.
Well, did you have? Did you watch anything with the audio commentary at all, or anything like that?
No audio commentary. Well, at least not one listed. So I'll have to go back and look. So there isn't a commentary listed on either one.
Kyle, you mentioned that Apple recently upgraded the Terminator copies from Blu-ray 470 or whatever to 4K.
Yeah, so what happens with Apple, and this is great. Now they put out some of Cameron's movies well before they came out on physical, like Abyss and Aliens and stuff like Terminator. Actually, I thought it already had, but it hadn't. It upgraded this morning about 12:01 a.m. And this is kind of the nice thing about what Apple does, at least with their digital, is if you already own it, they will upgrade you to the 4K version automatically. So
nice. Yeah.
But the great thing is with Apple too is over the last year they're getting these special features. So you are getting these special features that are included on these discs that you can go back and watch. So yeah, I had the 4K version this morning. I got home from work and watched it. But yeah, that's kind of the nice thing with it. And you get the 4K, you get in the Atmos sound, everything. It's just it's great for that.
Well, I did find just a recent article that was released today because I wanted to get any insight from another reviewer, Brad Cook, on flickeringmyth.com. He did a little review here saying that I like the 4K release, looks nice on my TV. There's no Blu-ray included though, but you do get the digital copy. On the bonus features front, you'll likely want to hold on to your previous home video editions of the movie if you have them, since what's included here is far from everything that's been available before. But you do get the James Cameron optional commentary on the 10 minutes of deleted scenes found there, which is nice since the track was missing from the old Blu-ray. And it says there's some things that weren't on it from other stuff, so hold on to your other stuff if you're into that. But he did give it, both the film and the movie, a 4 out of 4 for each of them, of course. So yeah. Do you remember what home video copy, Aaron, that you got when yours first came out?
Oh God, do I have it on video? Do I feel like I might have ripped it from the video? I have a feeling. Do you know that there's that meme going around about Matthew's first birthday, and then it's swiped out, and they put something like Terminator because you've taped over it, and it's like Matthew stuck it up because right. I feel like that's what I did. But there was a weird thing I don't know if this was Australia only, but because Terminator came out through a movie company that went debunk, like it was who was the company it came out. So then MGM had it, but then Universal had all the rest. So we're probably jumping ahead on this. We're talking about variations of DVDs.
Yeah, you can mention that now. Yeah.
We got my an old boyfriend of mine, Will. I bought him for his birthday the exoskeleton head.
Oh yeah. I always wanted to get that one.
It had the DVD of Terminator, but the rest were Blu-ray because Universal brought it out, but they didn't have or they finally got the rights to it. It was a weird thing that MGM had it, then Universal had the rest, and then they brought out things first, but this one wasn't ready for Blu-ray, and there you go.
Yeah. You know, so I
feel like I taped over Matthew's first birthday.
Yeah. Screw it. Too bad, Matthew. You know, it's funny. It's funny because I've been going over the copies I have, and I have like a VHS re-release from the early '90s. It's still wrapped. You know, there's something about it. I'm not a fan of these when they first came out there, but I'm still like, you know, sentimental about the old paper, you know, cover copies with the flip things. You know,
Yep.
I still have that copy. And I have like this special edition, and this has got some pretty good special features. So that's why I'm held on to it. It's got kind of a little like prism feel to it. And then I got this other DVD, which has not a lot of special features, but it's got the cool lenticular thing between the cyborg and Schwarzenegger. And if you're listening to this podcast, make sure you check out the video. We got some cool slides here. And then, of course, I got the Blu-ray Terminator one with the digital copy on there with some special features, but not a lot. But this is the one I still have sealed. When Deadpool 2 came out, they had the alternate Deadpool cover Terminator, and then on the back it always says, "I wish I was in this movie, but I'm not." So I had to pick up a few of my favorite versions of those and everything. So yeah. All right, guys. Well, let's get into the discussion of the movie here. Now, we like to have a little fun with IMDb here, and we like to call this the IMDb possibly vague and not always spot-on plot description. And what I've got here is a cyborg assassin from the future attempts to find and kill Sarah Connor, a waitress who is destined to give birth to the man who will save humankind from extinction. That sounds pretty spot on. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Where did you see the movie?
You know, it's funny because sometimes they're not spot on, but that's pretty spot on and to the point. So the first thing I want to ask you guys, and Aaron, I'm going to have you and I wait because we this ties into what we did recently. But Lacey, I want to start from you here first. Is how did you watch this movie recently? And I think you just answered that. But when and where did you first see this film?
Oh gosh. Okay, so this is an 1984 release. So I was 11. I was not going to be allowed to see this in the theaters. I probably saw this around about the time Terminator 2 came out. Likely because I would have wanted to see it, and then I would have wanted, just because my brains won't let me watch a sequel without watching the original. So I probably saw this, number 2 was 87, 88, somewhere in there.
Okay, gotcha.
Ish.
Kyle, what about you? How'd you watch this originally, and then how'd you watch it recently?
So, well, obviously I watched it this morning on digital 4K. Originally I was 9 when this came out, so going to the theaters wasn't an option. But thank God I have parents who were open-minded enough that when they hit home video at our local video store and they rented it, they let me watch it.
Nice.
And my mom might have tried to cover my eyes during a certain scene or two, but other than that, because I got to watch this at home video. That was the first time I remember watching it. And I just, you know, being that kid and watching especially the last 15 minutes of this film, it just was mind blowing to me at the time. But yeah, home video for me, Terminator. And yeah, from there we go from there.
Gotcha. All right, Aaron, we'll get into how we saw it recently, but I want to ask you about how you originally saw it.
So I feel this because this is where we weren't in the future. We were in the past. So we saw this in 85 because I was dating a guy and we went to go and see Police Academy 2. And which I did end up seeing, but I'm not a big comedy fan. So we were late. I remember that. And so we in Police Academy 2 was sold out. So we missed it. And they said, why don't you, what else is playing? And they said Terminator. And it wasn't even on my radar. So I actually missed Arnold Schwarzenegger. Missed that whole scene because we got in late. So I only saw
hold on. You missed Naked Butt Arnie. That's what you missed.
Yeah, I never saw it. So I only saw Naked Butt Reese, then getting into old man's outfit. And sorry, Lacey.
Nope. Just a note: the 4K is a little bit more defined. Just going to throw it out.
So you can tell what
expecting that.
Are you saying the crackage is really in 4K? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that the front, the full frontal is in 4K.
Because the shadows would now
the shadows are
the shadows are gone.
And so there's the Schwartz and Donger is there.
Yeah. So, because we missed, so we were going to see that. So we went and saw, got into when Kyle Reese was dropping, and he drops and he doesn't land as well as, Arnold Schwarzenegger. And then he gets into the stinky clothes, and there's a running joke between us about that. And then yeah, I know. So after that, this was what I call my 6 times to the movie. Nice. Those were the days I saw like 6 times at the cinema because I absolutely loved it. Like I'm so glad because I Police Academy 2 was okay, but not a thing I would have wanted to see. But this thing was amazing. So I'm glad that was sold out, and I'm glad I got to see this thing. So probably about maybe a few days later, I went and saw the whole thing. So then I got to see Arnold Schwarzenegger.
So
and, there you go.
So what I'm getting from Lacey here is the 4K shows Arnold's Twig and Berries in 4K. So that's good to know.
I mean, I just was relaxing watching, and I was like, oh, that's that. I don't. I remember that from the original. Like I don't remember seeing that before.
He doesn't wear a cover; he just walks.
Yeah.
Yep. Apparently.
I had not seen it in the theater. I saw it on VHS originally because I didn't have pay channels at the time, and I remember watching it over and over and over, and watching it again when Terminator 2 was coming out. But yeah, it was one of those things that. I felt like they released it on broadcast television, just heavily edited too. I might have recorded that, but the VHS, of course, was a copy that I had. Kyle,
I feel like with this film too, this was one that a lot of people really did get introduced to on VHS because I just don't feel like it had this long theater run here in the U.S.
Well, what about pay channels like HBO and stuff like that?
I maybe there, but I just feel like that. That was at a time when movies took up to 2 years to get to HBO, and you always had the video release first. And I feel like the video releases really where Terminator gained a lot of ground because I don't remember a lot of theater hype for the Terminator.
Yeah, I don't either. Yeah,
I feel like there's a lot of like the half of Gen X saw it 4 years later. Because they were allowed to see Terminator 2, and I think that a lot of people piggybacked the first one, seeing the first one from the first time. Before they saw the second one.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the things because I think it definitely found another audience on home video, and then of course a lot of people when they saw Terminator 2 hadn't seen the original and went back and watched it or watched the original before Terminator 2 came out.
I remember it playing for a long time here. It played a long time here
in the theaters.
Yeah. Everyone saw it at the cinema. It was one of those things. So yeah, I think that everyone that I know my dad took my brother. So he would have been about 12. So we went and saw it again. So I would have seen it with Dad. I went and saw it with my friends, Nikki Smythe and Simon White. I saw it with everyone. It was one of those things that we went, someone saw it, then dragged all their friends. So it was all on at the cinema.
Gotcha. Well, speaking of cinema, Aaron, we got to share a really cool experience in Australia earlier this year. You brought this to my attention. We went to go see the Terminator 1984 live with an orchestra at Hamer Hall in Melbourne, Australia. I got a little bit of copy here for the ad for it. It says, experience the groundbreaking cult classic, The Terminator, on an HD screen while Brad Fiddel's signature synthesizer-led percussion score is performed live in sync with the 1984 motion picture. Aaron, we had a great time going to this event, and that Hamer Hall is an amazing area there. The art center and all that. It's an amazing venue to see stuff there. We were recently there to see something else as well. But give me your thoughts on our experience at seeing Terminator live with an orchestra.
Oh, I loved it. I did Raiders of the Lost Ark a couple of years before, which is doing again in January actually here. And I love that too. So seeing, and then when this came out, I was like, this will be amazing. It's just a great experience to hear the live orchestra plus watch the movie. And we'd all seen the movie. It was really busy too, of a generation, of course. And I just love the fact that there was two tiny women playing the big drums. That was the funniest. They were tiny. The two drums, where there's these girls that look like they were about 5'2".
Yeah. And so I got some slides here that I took with my camera here, and at one of the slides here on the bottom right shows at the end they all stand up, and as you can see, they've been showing the film and such. And I did want to tease a little video that was taken here, a little 30 seconds here of what was happening. And if you can zoom in a little bit, you'll see these two tiny girls on these gigantic drums in the background here. So check this out. So there you go. And it's so funny because they're so tiny you can barely see them in that video, which I thought was funny. But I had a great time. I love that venue. I love going down there. And when you see the doom, 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 these girls are basically doing the doom, 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 doom with these big, drumsticks and stuff. And it really kind of added to the experience, Aaron. It was a special thing.
No, I think everyone had seen it. It would have been very rare that no one had seen that film before. So they were going just to sort of hear. And it's a great experience to do. They've been doing a lot of it. We missed out seeing, it was a choice of either hearing John Williams' music or doing Back to the Future that they did recently. So for listeners out there, if in your town you've got a place where they're going to do a live orchestra to the movie, it's definitely an experience worth doing. And the fingers crossed, there's two movies I'd love them to do: Close Encounters and The Omen. To hear the Omen music live with that, vocals would be my thing. So I'd
love to see Raiders of the Lost Ark like you did. That would be very, very cool.
Oh, you come out here in January. They're doing it again.
Oh, so good. All right. Let's get into the main movie discussion here, guys. So because this is celebrating its 40th anniversary of the Terminator here, I found an article about the discussion of 40 years of the Terminator. And it highlighted James Cameron, basically. And it says here, the Terminator 40, did James Cameron see into the future? The 1984 sci-fi thriller offers a grim view of the dangers that the machines might pose for humanity, as well as some of the most thrilling experiences of the decade. What about the future of James Cameron's The Terminator? No need to worry about the machines rising from the ashes of a nuclear fire just yet, or decades-long war to exterminate mankind. We still have 5 years until Los Angeles 2029 AD is a post-apocalyptic lorded over by AI, and there's certainly not a 0% chance that the robot tanks will crush a grim landscape of human skulls while a pocket of survivors scurry from laser fire of drones from above. The technology that helps plagiarize grade school dissertations today could be the same technology that annihilates mankind tomorrow. Point is, James Cameron has the singular ability to see the future, at least as far as the movies are concerned. His reported fiascos like Titanic and Avatar have been some of the biggest hits in film history. and his effects work has set new standards and trends in CGI and 3D. And his understanding of strong women, however narrow at times, have been imitated by blockbusters typically dominated by men. Perhaps you couldn't expect to predict what might happen to the world in 4 decades, but he's been persistently uncanny ahead of everyone else in the industry. And it all started with the Terminator. James Cameron, of course, has recently been quoted. It's harder to write sci-fi because we're living in a sci-fi world. Aaron, I want to start with you. James Cameron. Oh, Kyle, yes. Sorry, you wanted to jump in real quick?
There's something I just wanted to add into that, Kevin, which was another article, and I had forgotten about it until you.
Oh, please do. Go right ahead.
The Ringer webpage, which is a great pop culture webpage in itself, on October 24th, 2024, Adam Nyman wrote a great article about the Terminator's 40th anniversary. It's titled "The Terminator is James Cameron's smallest movie and biggest achievement. 40 years later, the magic of James Cameron's breakthrough is still evident. The magnitude, the genius, irrationality of Arnold Schwarzenegger's casting, and the intoxicating mix of mainstream movie making and complex artistic range." Go find this article. It's really got some interesting in-depth history on the Terminator film.
Cool.
Good to hear. Well, there's been a lot coming out too, and I wanted to ask you, Aaron, regarding the influence that James Cameron has on just technology, future. What is your take on that?
Well, him and the Simpsons apparently can, see into the future.
Predicting the future, yes.
Yeah, I know. We haven't quite got to the one we all want with the Simpsons, but that they predicted. But it's look. I mean, look at what now AI. I mean, face swapping. I mean, it's robots that are doing this and that. And then the scary thing is, 2029 is not that far away. And I'd like to say that when I was living in London in 1997, someone put a little bit of an article in the newspaper on August 29th, 1997, saying today's Judgment Day. I mean, it's made that much of an impact across the world, which it was a tiny film. I mean, it was a little film noir that really... I know we'll talk about this next in Aliens, that he had to keep proving himself to the next film, to the crew that was in England going, look, this is what I did. A lot of people hadn't seen it, We might have seen it, but it didn't mean that everybody else had seen it. And I think, but again, all this technology across anything, with Aliens, with, with Ripley talking to Burke on technically your phone now, looking at watching faces, it's all happening now. So, I mean, he's obviously been interested in all of that, and he's obviously done his research. It's not just, I'm going to make this up. He's done research into it because, but it's seeped into everything now. Literally a small independent film. This wasn't a blockbuster in the sense, has literally just seeped its fingers into all of our pop culture and our society.
Lacey, what about you? What are your thoughts on James Cameron's look into the future and technology and such?
Pretty sure he's a wizard. Just saying. I mean, yeah. There's really no, I mean, Aaron got it. It's all,
Kyle?
That's it. That's what it is.
Kyle, your thoughts?
So the whole James Cameron and technology thing is such an interesting conversation. You talk about it here with just his predictions of the future with AI and where we're headed right now, and AI becoming, we're in the early stages of teaching AI in our own society, and so it'll be it's kind of curious to see, do we follow the lessons that this movie teaches us? But what gets more fascinating to me when James Cameron, and this is something we're going to be doing The Abyss soon as well. I think starting with The Abyss, when you talk about James Cameron and technology, where he's literally changing technology then and there to technology we're using at that point. When you talk The Abyss, the dive equipment he developed for that and the cameras and things like that. James Cameron has changed more technologically in Hollywood and in movie making than in my opinion, any filmmaker ever has. And it's one of the most interesting things because he's become such an innovator of film and people, I mean, there's camera systems that he's got copyrights on. It's insane. So not only is he predicting the future, but what he changes in our time, in the here and now with technology, is just as amazing as what he's predicting in the future in this film.
You know, you're right on there, Kyle. I find that meme that's been going around this year, the John Connor from Terminator 2, with that funny look on his face saying, "John Connor, look at everyone experimenting with AI," you know, and having fun with it. I definitely, you know, I think that James Cameron has taken it. I felt like George Lucas kind of started it, the ball rolling with the technology and the different cameras and a lot of the special effects and rigs and how he started. And then James Cameron kind of took the ball and run with it. But I did want to ask one related question to this, guys. And Aaron, I'm going to start with you because we've kind of discussed this. And we love to talk about whether or not a film is aged well or not. It's one of the things we talk about. Has Terminator 1984 aged well for you?
Oh, totally. Yes, it has, but it's still very 80s. And mainly because of hair being very big and blow dry. Kyle Reese's hair suddenly got a blow wave. Again, yeah, I mean, yes, it has aged well, but it's still, unlike Ridley Scott movies that have they're totally seamless. Even watching Alien, even though it was the 70s and the alien ship, and we'll talk about that later on another one, is old, his technology still looks new. And you'll find that's
the key.
Cameron and Aliens, we'll discuss that later, how that didn't quite make it.
Right.
With the stop motion at the end, yes, you know, it would be seamless now, it would be CGI, but I still don't think it would be as organic.
Yeah.
And I think that looking at further, and again, with other discussions talking about practical effects, even though stop motion isn't, but it is, and then going through, because Terminator 2 was the first of the really good CGI, other than Jurassic Park, and then it all went downhill for a while and came back up. I think with just the feel of it, the mood and everything, you can still watch it and not think it's a dated film. That's for me, but then I'm still living in that era. So you asking me if it's a dated film is different from then a Gen Z watching it saying it's dated, because I'm still stuck in the 80s and I'm not coming out.
I don't blame you. You know, the way that you said organic is one of the reasons that make it feeling like it hasn't aged well. Yes, of course, it's in 1984, but we got so many movies nowadays, guys, that are going back to the 80s and the 90s, and they're doing their best to, you know, pick out cars and stuff like this. But, you know, when you said the organic word, it really popped out. Like, you know, yes, stuff would now be CGI, but I like the fact that it is all practical, and thus it feels like it hasn't aged well because it looks realistic in that sense. What about you, Lacey? Has Terminator aged well for you?
I think technologically, I think it has aged well, or at least to a point where anyone who has seen it in its original time frame is willing to overlook certain tiny little things that, you know, may be a little bit telling of its age. I think that the PC of it all, I think that there's the Rick Rossovich character, his the whole rape fantasy thing is probably something you couldn't put in a movie today, like with the post Me Too movement and all that kind of thing. But other than that, I think the storyline, everything else is absolutely holds up, because
Gotcha.
You know, I mean, like we've been talking about, I mean, AI is right here. It's not just watching a fantasy movie anymore. This is watching premonitions, basically.
Yeah. What about you, Kyle? Aged well for you, Terminator?
Here's the thing. This is the magic of one of the magics of this movie, is that it is a great in the here and now movie, but it's an amazing time capsule film too. It's a great here and the now because of the technology that they talk about is something that is happening to us right now. And so it gives us all that thing to think about. But yet, because it's of the practical effects, the style of this, and Cameron just capturing that time frame so well in so many different aspects, it's a great time capsule movie to flash back to from that time frame. So he really worked the magic here, because usually you only can get one or the other, and he got them both in this film. And yes, even though you talk about the stop motion with the exoskeleton, people are good with that because, one, they understand the practical effects, and two, we are kind of in a little bit of a swing in Hollywood right now where they are doing more practical effects. And so people are more appreciative of that right now. And so I think that it's kind of one of those things. It's like, yeah, it looks a little, but it still hits in the heart. And it's like, you really appreciate that practical effect and the stop motion that they do there. So like I said, it's one of the few movies that gets them both right.
It's a good point. I like that. We've got some movie reviews here. The Terminator has an approval rating of 100% based on 67 reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, which is pretty cool. And consensus reads, with its impressive action sequences, taut economic direction, and relentlessly fast pace, it's clear why the Terminator continues to be an influence on sci-fi and action flicks. Metacritic gave the score out of 84 out of 100. Time placed Terminator on its 10 best for 1984. Los Angeles Times called the film a crackling thriller full of sorts of gory treats, loaded with fuel-injected chase scenes, clever special effects, and sly humor. Milwaukee Journal gave it film 3 stars, calling it the most chilling science fiction thriller since Alien. There was some other negative criticism based on the violence and storytelling quality. Janet Maslin of the New York Times said the film was a B movie with flair. Much of it has suspense and personality, and only the obligatory mayhem becomes dull. There's far too much of the latter in the form of chase cars, messy shootouts, and Mr. Schwarzenegger's slamming brutality into anything that gets in the way. The Pittsburgh Press wrote a negative review, calling the film just another one of the films drenched in a artsy ugliness like Streets of Fire and Blade Runner. Do you guys remember the reviews that this got at the time? Because I did not. I just remember any one of my friends that saw it that they liked it. You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Kevin, interestingly enough, no Roger Ebert review on this film.
Yeah, I think they did kind of talk about it in a wrap-up type show, but yeah, I was trying to find one, and I did not see one from him. So yeah, that's a good call. Well, another fun little thing we like to do is some trivia here, guys. We've got some trivia for the Terminator, and found some good ones here. Kyle, I didn't know if you wanted to help me read some of these. I'll start with number 1 here. While shooting the film, James Cameron often resorted to what he called guerrilla filmmaking as a way of getting around acquired permits needed to film certain scenes. This involved the production crew and actors quickly arriving at a specified location, shooting the scene, and leaving before the police arrived. As a result, some of the people seen in a few shots are actually everyday citizens completely unaware they're in a movie. This was also used for reshoots, with Cameron even calling and waking Arnold Schwarzenegger once at 3 a.m. to meet him at a location already in full costume to quickly reshoot a scene. Cameron would also use this tactic to film the very last scene where Sarah drives off into the desert, waiting for the heat to rise to the point that the ripples could be filmed and a highway patrolman appeared. Producer Gale Anne Hurd convinced him that they were working on a UCLA film project that then they allowed him to finish. Talk about guerrilla filmmaking. Carl, what you got? Or Kyle, what you got next?
If you don't mind, I want to read the next two because I think they tie in together.
Yes, they do. Go for it.
So first off, Arnold Schwarzenegger tried to avoid Linda Hamilton and Michael Biehn as much as possible, since the Terminator was trying to kill them, not form connections. And the reason why this ties together, because Arnold Schwarzenegger also worked with guns every day for a month to prepare for the role. The first 2 weeks of filming, he practiced weapon stripping and reassembly blindfolded until the motions were automatic like a machine. He spent hours at the shooting range and practicing with different weapons without blinking or looking at them when reloading or cocking. He also had to be ambidextrous. He practiced different moves up to 50 times. He wound up garnering a compliment in Soldier of Fortune magazine for his realistic handling of the guns on camera, whereas the magazine usually lampoons movies for their inaccurate depictions of weapons in use. And I think this is important because Schwarzenegger was just so completely dived into this film and just dedicated himself to this film.
If you can get props from Soldier of Fortune magazine for handling weapons well, that's high praise right there. I like that.
Right?
At around the 23-minute mark near the beginning of the movie, when Sarah Connor, Linda Hamilton, receives a message on her answering machine breaking her date, the voice on the machine is James Cameron. Years later, Hamilton and Cameron got married and then eventually divorced.
Yeah. James Cameron got the idea of giving Arnold Schwarzenegger even fewer lines in the film than Schwarzenegger's earlier film, Conan the Barbarian, which was out in 1982. Schwarzenegger only had 24 lines in Conan the Barbarian. In this film, he only has 14 lines.
There you go. James Cameron got the idea for the filming during post-production of the previous film, Piranha 2, The Spawning, came out in 1982, in Rome. Since he had been fired from production, he had spent the last of his own money on a plane ticket to get there, hoping to be at least involved in the editing process. Without money for proper food, he became increasingly sick, and he went to bed one night with high fever. He had a nightmare of a metal endoskeleton emerging from flames, dragging itself over the floor holding kitchen knives. When he woke up, he immediately made a drawing of this vision. Most of the script was written backwards from there. The endoskeleton would have to be the futuristic, but since Cameron couldn't afford to set the film in the future, the solution was to bring the future to the present. Hence, the time travel aspect of the script was written in. The special effects artist Stan Winston was brought in and add a few more designs to the endoskeleton, but in the end, they basically used the one that Cameron had drawn the first time. There you go.
Kevin, considering the shirt you're wearing, I think you should read the next piece of trivia.
Okay, here, let me show this one off here a little bit here. Okay. So yeah, Technor nightclub. In the film, the name of the nightclub where Terminator first targets Sarah was named Technor after a film genre which James Cameron coined himself in describing what category his film falls under after dismissing the notions that it was a mere horror or slasher film. Technor films like Blade Runner 1982 and this film combine the old-style grittiness of noir films with the futuristic elements of sci-fi thriller. Cameron himself had the club built specifically for the film and had to turn away local clubgoers who thought Technor was a real nightclub. The building still exists, but is now a jewelry store and also a t-shirt here that I'm wearing as well. Can you imagine the type of clientele that was showing up for this, Kyle?
Yeah. I also just one real point with that with the Technor thing, because I can remember many a video store for a long time used to have Terminator in the horror movie section.
Yeah, it is.
So
My Blockbuster always had it in action because that's where I put it.
Oh,
I always saw it in sci-fi. I always saw it in sci-fi. What's that, Aaron?
Sci-fi.
Yeah.
Our area, nobody watched sci-fi, so we had our sci-fi section had like 7 movies in it because no one would go to that section.
Yeah.
Kyle, get us the last one here.
Yeah, we got one more piece because Michael Biehn almost didn't get the role of Kyle Reese. Great name, by the way, Kyle Reese. I'm just saying. Because in his first audition, he spoke in a Southern accent as a result of working on a part for a stage production of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. He didn't get the role, by the way. During a talk with Bihn's agent, the producers mentioned that they liked Bihn's performance, but they didn't want Reese's accent making him seem too regionalized. This really puzzled his agent, who asked, "What accent?" After the mystery was cleared up, the producers called him back for another audition, and he got the part.
There you go. That there is a movie trivia for Terminator 1984.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. You missed one, like the biggest one.
Hold on. Go ahead. Let it roll. What have we missed?
The Lance Henriksen turning up for the audition for the Terminator, all dressed up as the Terminator. He wanted the job. Lance Henriksen. And I think.
So what you're saying is he pulled a Sean Young who wanted to be Catwoman.
No, I'm going to pull that back. He went in with James Cameron. I think this was to get money or the producers to show the movie coming out. And he dressed up as the Terminator. James Cameron got him to turn up, scare them all, and then they decide to go with something else, and he got the other part. But Lance Henriksen was going to be the Terminator first.
Yeah, well, and amazingly enough, James Cameron did eventually turn him into a robot.
He did. It was originally, he went in and apparently all dressed up with stuff on to scare everyone to show how they could get money for the Terminator. Or I'm making it all up, but I'm pretty sure that was real.
Is this the only Terminator movie where there is no actor cast as John Connor?
No, there's several more.
Yeah, there's several more.
I think all the other ones have an actual John Connor in them.
Oh, you're saying, is this the only one that did not? I see.
There's no actor saying John Connor. They just speak about him. This is the only one.
Yeah, there's no one. No, John Connor.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. All right, let's get into our favorite scenes, guys. And I'm going to start with you, Aaron, here, and I'm going to show some slides here. What were some of your favorite scenes in Terminator 1984?
Oh, okay. So the tech noir shootout is probably my favorite. Just the slow-mo and the music and the dancing, and then the whole thing speeds up. That favorite. Great sex scene, the love scene, great. I have to say, this is a bit like Superman the movie for me. The lead up to Superman becoming Superman and he saves Lois Lane is the greatest thing on earth. Once that happens, I get bored. Terminator, love it. But as soon as after they have the sex scene and together, and then it all, to me, that last bit, I know that's Kyle's favorite, but for me, I start to go, I love the lead up and then that. So really everything. I love the scenes in the cop thing. Man, I don't need the shootout, but the two scenes between the two cops, Lance Henriksen and Paul Winfield,
Yeah.
They could have had their own movie. They could have done a spin-off.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Like with Michael Nuri and Kyle MacLachlan in The Hidden. They could have done another movie of their own movie. So all of it from the start to when I finally did see that start to up to when they have sex and she's throwing the bag and he's laughing is all of it is good.
Gotcha. Lacey, what are some of your favorite scenes?
I gotta say the land yacht situation, the big car chase where it was like that 1978 Cadillac, which
right?
It's like driving a couch at 90 miles an hour, and the police cruiser. It was just a really, drive. He just like jumps out the window like he doesn't give her a chance, and it's just this very chaotic scene that I very much enjoyed. I did love the, come with me if you want to live, which is, of course, the quintessential moment. And I did enjoy, I liked the, when he was like digging through his arm and like fixing his arm and all that kind of stuff. I actually had an ex-boyfriend who had that tattooed on his forearm. He actually took a photograph, and he had it like tattooed so it looked like his arm was open.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Kyle, what about you? What are some of your favorite scenes?
Well, so one of my favorite scenes is the reveal of the first time we see the full endoskeleton. Just because I think we'd never really seen anything quite like that at the time. So I think that's just a stick out memory moment. But actually, one of my favorite scenes is when Reese is having the flashback dream or the flash forward dream, where you see the future, because you know what the budget was on this film and what they pulled off with that, because it was gritty and it was dirty, but it still had a little bit of that futuristic feel. I thought was very good. And I'm a fan of everything in the police station. That everything there is just absolutely amazing, from the performances to just the feel of it. And it's become so iconic. But yeah, those are probably a couple of my favorite scenes in this film.
I enjoy the police shootout, of course, and I love that car chase, as you referred to earlier, Lacey.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm with Aaron. The tech noir scene is just phenomenal. The suspense up to it, too, and also realizing like who's who and what's going on, and how they're going to try to get away from this guy is very suspenseful. And I remember the whole like eye cutting scene and the arm cutting scene. That was like grossed a lot of people out. I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. But I love the ending scene too, where you see Sarah and her dog in the Jeep, and and then her driving off into the cloudy, not necessarily fun sunset there. I thought that was a great scene as well. Do you guys have any favorite quotes from the film? Let's go with you, Aaron.
Oh, I like the whole thing that Kyle says to Sarah about he came back back through time for her, that he had the picture of her and he's always been in love with her.
Was that in the sewer or was that in the hotel room?
That was in the hotel. That's before they just suddenly, they have sex and then, they consummate John Connor. So I love that. It did have very quotable, the bit where he said, "Come with me, if you want to live. But the whole talking about, about what the Terminator is about and all of that. So, but I mean, all of it, as I said, some of those throwaway lines between the policemen, especially Lance Henriksen telling funny stories about, what other dreadful, cases he had about an Afghan. I always thought was quite funny. So, just, they had lots of very quotable lines that, again, has gone through and has literally now cemented itself in our society forever.
Lacey, what about you?
I think that kind of some of the smaller ones, like the therapist who says, "This guy's great. I could make a whole career out of just analyzing."
It's the throwaway ones.
Joy with which he said that line, and he's only got like 6 lines in the movie or something. He was only in like 2 scenes, and then when you see the wrong Sarah. When he says Sarah Connor and she says yes, and then it's just boom, like that kind of encapsulates just the straight face, that deadpan face that Arnold has throughout the whole film is, with the "I'll be back" and the, "I'm a friend of Sarah Connor." No, you're not. No, you're not.
Kyle, what about you?
2 come to mind. Kyle Reese's, when they're watching the recording they did of Kyle Reese and everything, how intense Michael Biehn is in that scene and just how he's quoting it, you could, as the viewer and knowing what's going on, you're literally like, okay, yeah, you're a little scared of what's coming here, and yet you're watching how the police are reacting to it and thinking he's a nut job. But for me, it's the monologue Sarah Connor has at the end of the film is just so powerful, because this film does not end on what we call a happy, positive note here. And it's so well performed because it really reflects the change that Sarah Connor had been through this movie and where she's at the end of this film. But I also need to say this, James Cameron I think has created the 2 films that are the most quotable films and has the most quotable lines that have invaded pop culture of any director out there. Between this and Aliens.
Yeah, I just want to read the end of that Sarah Connor monologue that you mentioned. Kyle says, "If you don't send Kyle, you'll never be. God, a person can go crazy thinking about this. I suppose I will tell you, I owe him that. Maybe it'll be enough if you know that in a few hours we had together, we loved a lifetime's worth." I thought that was a great line. And, the most famous line, of course, is "I'll be back." That's probably one of the most famous movie quotes of all time. The one that always gets to me, though, is when Kyle is as you mentioned, talking to the police, and Kyle goes, "Listen, understand that Terminator's out there. It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity, remorse, or fear, and absolutely will stop ever until you are dead." It's that one is just like, okay, that's kind of a wake up call if you don't really understand what's going on. Kyle just told you.
I actually use one, and it's a real throwaway line, but it's when Sarah is working as a waitress and it's all going wrong for her. She's getting the wrong orders, and the kid puts the ice cream into her apron, and her friend comes around. She's got the bubble gum in her mouth. She's like, think of it this way: in 100 years, no one's going to care. Yeah. And the amount of times I've quoted that to people, in 100 years, no one's going to care.
The one that her friend says when they're hearing about the other Sarah Connors being killed is like, "You're dead, girl." It's very ominous.
That's the beauty of Terminator, just like going on a different way, is these little characters, whether it's the cops, the psychiatrist, usually these people would just disappear, but even that waitress, we remember what she says.
Mm-hmm.
She's only in for a second.
It's funny you bring that up because that goes right into the next segment here.
Segue.
The cast and crew. Nice segue there, Aaron. So obviously we've got James Cameron, director, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, Michael Biehn, and some cool photos here of them if you're listening to this. But you mentioned, of course, the cops and the police station with Lance Hendrickson and Paul Winfield. Of course, we've got an early Bill Paxton as one of the early punks showing up in this, as well as Brian Thompson, who's always good at playing heavies and bad guys. Really good bad guy in Cobra. And of course, we got the psychiatrist. We got Rick Rossovich as the roommate's boyfriend, and of course the roommate as well. They all kind of get their moments and stuff. I couldn't tell what the roommate was listening to on her Walkman, but I was kind of putting that in there. But to throw some names out there, of course, we have Bess Mata as Ginger. Earl Bowen plays the Dr. Silberman. Dick Miller is the pawn shop clerk. I like that guy.
Mm-hmm.
We have Sean Sheps as Nancy. Bruce Kerner as the desk sergeant. He's the one that gets run in by the Terminator's car. Franco Columbu, if you know who he is, he's the future Terminator. Bill Paxton is the punk leader, of course. So I love those. But I want to kind of get your guys' thoughts on the rest of the cast, or if you want to chime in on the main cast as well. Kyle, let's start with you, sir.
So one of the fun things about this movie is you go back, and this movie contains what I call the James Cameron bunch. A lot of actors he used in many of his films. And really, let's be honest here. None of them were huge name actors at this point. Schwarzenegger was obviously Conan, but he wasn't Schwarzenegger yet. And so you have a young James Cameron. You have so many of people who are now grown to be bigger stars. And we kind of talked about this the other day on Culture Clash with the Need for Speed cast. It's kind of the same effect here, I think. These people all went on to become bigger stars, which I think helps one of the aspects that helps the Terminator become more popular later on down the road, just like with Need for Speed when like Rami Malek and Aaron Paul and everything like that. It's one of those effects, and I think that's what's great about this cast.
Yeah, that's a good call. Lacey, what about you? What are your thoughts on the cast?
I think that with a different cast and I think that the chemistry in this is so, it's perfect. I don't think that, you read about who might have had that role or who might have had this role or whatever. I don't think I would replace any single person in this movie. Everyone knew the assignment and everyone completed it with flying colors. I think that everyone was cast perfectly well. So I don't know who the casting director was on this, but they deserve a raise.
Yeah. All right. What about you, Aaron? Your thoughts on the cast? You kind of touched on a little bit. Anyone you want to highlight?
I think Lacey's right. I'll go with Lacey on that. Everybody, what I liked about it, everyone was even. There wasn't a star. Even though, as you said, people, who saw Conan? I mean, it became huge, but did a lot of people see it? So really everyone was on an even keel. A couple of the others, Lance Henriksen had done a couple of things. Paul Winfield was probably a bit more known, but they were all character actors. So no one was a star. Later on, it all became a little bit, because Schwarzenegger got bigger and then he became the thing. But in this, he was playing the character, not playing Arnold Schwarzenegger, playing the Terminator. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel, again, and going, that little scene, which again is one of, when you start thinking of scenes, the one in the pawn, the gun shop.
Yeah,
and he's talking about all the Uzi 5mm or whatever, 6mm, and then he talks about the gun that hasn't even been made yet.
The pulse.
Yeah. I've only got what you can see.
It's just what you see, boy.
Yeah, but that scene, which was repeated in The Simpsons, literally is a memorable scene. And so everybody was this. There was no one who was a higher thing where you went to see a movie that had these people in it, not I'm going to see Arnold Schwarzenegger in a movie that had other people in it.
That's a good point. Yeah, I liked your call out of the police officers with Lance and Paul.
They should have been filmed. Do a film. They should have done.
Yeah, I would like to see where those guys, spent their nights and days prior and stuff like that. And the pawn shop guy. Everyone kind of had a moment. It was good in there. But we do have a segment here on Culture Clash. This is Kyle's favorite segment here. We call this the Ocean's 11. Do you think we need one more? Who would you add to the cast? And I got a couple of shout outs here. Now, before I get into it, I want to kind of explain this a little bit here. So I like to go back and look at what movie stars were on the rise in the year that the movie that we're talking about came out. And so I went back to 1984. It's the numbers.com. And some of the highest grossing stars. And one of the challenges that I want to throw at you guys regarding this segment here is I want you to pick someone that would kind of slide in that you would like to see of that time, but that wouldn't overshadow like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Not overshadow Linda Hamilton. But I did want to give you the top 10 of 1984 movie makers at this time. It was Clint Eastwood at number 1 with Eddie Murphy, Harrison Ford, Dan Aykroyd, Sylvester Stallone, William Shatner, Patrick Swayze. Arnold Schwarzenegger is at number 8. Tom Cruise is at number 9, and Richard Gere is at number 10. Now, I was looking through this list here, and I found 2 names that I thought was interesting, and they were of movies that came out this year and the previous year, and I thought it'd be kind of fun. You get a little Tawny Katane action in there, maybe another waitress, another friend or something like that, and maybe even, replacing the roommate. I don't know. But Meg Tilly as well. Not Jennifer Tilly, but Meg Tilly. She would have been kind of fun to be in there as well. But does anybody have, is there someone would add to this cast? Kyle, start with you.
So I was going over your list, Kevin, and there's one name that stood out to me because I think you would use him in an action sequence. And I think it would really kind of really show you just what the Terminator is and how strong it is. And that name is Bubba Smith, Kevin.
Okay.
But seriously, here's what I would do. I'd make him one of the officers in the station, and when the Terminator is attacking the station, have him physically try to tackle or take out the Terminator. Just because size-wise, Bubba Smith is up there with Schwarzenegger size-wise.
Okay, let's explain who Bubba Smith is for those that don't know. He is he's Hightower of the Police Academy films. He's also a former football player as well, very tall and imposing. I like that idea, Kyle.
So that's what I would go with if I'm going to put somebody in the movie for something like that, because I just think it really emphasizes, oh crap, we're really screwed here.
I don't know. I would have made the desk sergeant Adrian Zamed, and he gets killed right away. That would be kind of funny.
I like that. Leave him alone.
Wait, no. Kevin, the problem is his hair would have cushioned him from the car crashing through.
This is true. Lacey or Aaron, would you guys added anyone just for fun,
It would have been fun to see somebody that maybe was a little bit, maybe someone who was a little bit heavier into, I don't know, like feminine roles, and just to see the first Sarah Connor, and just to see another, maybe like Meryl Streep or Glenn Close, someone who was at that time, or Andie MacDowell. There you go. Let's put Andie MacDowell in as the first Sarah Connor.
You mean the one that's killed at the house?
No, the other one, the first one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we only see one.
Yeah, we see the second one. We don't see the first one.
Oh, that's a good call. I like that. Okay. Yeah. Aaron, I'm assuming you wouldn't touch this cast. You wouldn't.
No, don't. Why bother? Okay.
That's why I picked something like so little. There's really so good.
Oh. Well, okay, there you go. I'm going to throw Patrick Swayze dancing in the background at Technor.
There you go. That would have been funny if it was like an unspoken
he's doing it on his skates from Skate Town. You just see him zooming through the back.
At one point, he's like, "It's time to not be nice."
That's funny. I like that.
Then you slow it down.
We have another fun segment here that we call, and this is the Tom Selleck was Indiana Jones segment. Who almost got the role or passed on it? And this is an interesting one, guys. And I got some other people that passed on the role as well. In 1984 Terminator movie, O.J. Simpson was initially considered for the role of the Terminator before the part was ultimately given to Arnold Schwarzenegger. According to reports, studio executives suggested Simpson for the role, but director James Cameron decided against it as he didn't believe Simpson would be believable as a killer.
Okay, that just kills James Cameron's credibility from here on out, because obviously he can't recognize real life exceptions here.
Well, keep in mind he was doing O.J. Simpson before he was killing spouses. Was of course he was doing those Hertz commercials. He was funny. He was on football commentary shows and so, and of course he was in the Naked Gun films and stuff. So yeah, done that. Sylvester Stallone turned down the role apparently, and Mel Gibson also turned down the role.
But
And
they would have
that's
been 3'2", each of them.
Yeah.
They had to wear lifts on lifts. Could you imagine? Those two are tiny. They didn't pass. They passed on them.
There you go.
And the photo that you have up that is of Mel Gibson, it looks like Mark Valley. Like I did not know who that was when I first.
It does a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
That's some fun AI art there, just so you guys know. And Arnold Schwarzenegger, he was originally considered to play Kyle Reese, but of course Cameron cast him as the Terminator instead.
Actually, no. Arnold Schwarzenegger cast him as the. He said he wouldn't do. He wanted the Terminator, so it wasn't Cameron. It's actually they asked him to do Kyle Reese, and then Arnold Schwarzenegger said, "No, I think I'd be better as a Terminator."
He was right about that. All right, next segment is fun. The fast or not so furious favorite mode of transportation. We like to talk about the vehicles and such. And I got some ones up here for consideration. We've got the hunter-killer tank as Skynet's non-humanoid hunter-killers as a principal ground-based combat vehicle. Always thought those looked cool. I really love Sarah Connor's 1984 Honda Elite moped. Then we got the 1972 Honda CB754K2 that the Terminator drives. And then, of course, we got the famous 1983 Jeep CJ7 Renegade that Sarah Connor takes to Mexico. Any of your favorites here, Kyle?
Well, are we sure that motor scooter is in the GoBot? I'm gonna take that Jeep Renegade any day of the week. I mean, I love those Jeeps. Those are great. But the Hunter Killer machine is an amazing visual spectacle.
Now, Lacey, I didn't showcase that large car that you'd mentioned earlier, but is that one in the running for one of your favorite vehicles?
If I can't have the Lightning as the best mode of transportation, it was like a late 70s, early 80s Caddy. That thing was easily 22 feet long.
Yeah. The only problem with that time travel Lightning, it's hard on the wardrobe.
That's fair.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, Lacey, you're gonna be dropping in and around naked all the time. So by all means, be my
jeans and
guest.
T-shirt gal. I don't need to be fancy.
Just remember, you have to land on your knee.
Yeah. Aaron, do you have a favorite? Aaron, do you have a favorite mode of transportation?
Oh, it's always the Jeep.
Yeah. And those were so popular during that time, and they carried over and lasted forever. I saw these up until like the early 2000s.
That's what I drove in high school.
Yeah,
I had a similar version and decided I didn't want it, but if I was a choice, it would be that one.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we have the Harry Met Sally scene, best scene or moment between two characters. Sometimes we also combine it too with the Salt and Pepper Let's Talk About Sex scene. But you mentioned other non-sex scene stuff, including the sex scene there, Aaron. What is your favorite moment between two characters?
Okay, so the gun shop. I think that's a good one between both of them. The scenes with the two detectives talking about, just each scene about what they're going to do, finding Sarah Connor, putting the call out, but just the little talking, especially Lance Henriksen telling funny stories about other cases. Again, the two, the scene between Kyle and Sarah Connor in the motel room. There's probably lots more.
Well, Kyle, what about you?
Obviously the moments between when Kyle kind of reveals his feelings for Sarah and everything like that, that's incredibly powerful. But I gotta agree with Aaron. The scenes with the two detectives are just so scene stealing. And I had forgotten, it had been a while since I'd watched the Terminator, so I had actually a little bit forgotten about how good they were and how well they bounced off each other. The unintentional comedy that kind of went with that. I remember the one scene where Lance Henriksen starts talking about how he's got this one scar in a former guy arresting a guy who was on PCP, and his partner just cuts him off before he even can say anything. And you just see the look on Lance Henriksen's face there. I would say that's right up there with the Kyle and Sarah interactions.
And it actually made you care about those two characters. So when the whole massacre happens, I actually felt because
I
you
think
know
they've
that
made
they
a case
both
for a
probably
prequel TV series with these two guys.
Should've done
Aaron.
it.
That's great.
done it.
Lacey, what about you?
Okay, so I really do like Kyle's monologue when he gives her the message from John.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorites. And then when there's a lot of action, there's a lot of Kyle and her and all this other stuff, but I really do like, as far as the kind of the encapsulation of the 80s, like those 80s moments, the roommate stuff is kind of classic, right? They're sharing the bathroom, they're doing with the and then they're doing the all this, and then when she gets the message on the voicemail on the machine, he's like, I can't make it tonight or whatever. Ginger's reaction saying, he can't do that. So what if he's got a Porsche? It's Friday night. He can't leave you. Like, that is such an 80s thing to say. Like, so what if he has a Porsche? He can't leave you high and dry on a Friday night. That's just not okay. It's so 80s. It's such an 80s thing to say. And it really does kind of showcase the attitudes of the time.
Aaron?
I read the novella. It just came back to me then.
Oh, wow.
I read the book. Yeah, because I used to buy them, like the Raiders one. Remember Raiders came in different colors?
Yep.
Yeah.
And she's actually only 18. She's really young. I don't even think she's 20. Like no, they had to go out. So she's 21. I think she in the book she was about 19. I think she was a teenager. I remember her being really, really young. She wasn't. You won't think she's not like 25 or anything. She's really young when they did it. And I I'll kneecap him.
What's funny is I hadn't considered, Aaron, and you guys brought it up, the conversation between the two cops. That's a good one too. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of just whenever Kyle and Sarah are together, and it's funny too because like a certain scene which I don't include in this thing here has been floating around the internet with the sex scene. It's been pretty funny. Certain memes have come up with OnlyFans jokes and all kinds of stuff like that. But yeah, those I think you mentioned it, Kyle, too, when he's explaining where he's come from and stuff like that. So definitely. Well, guys, as a reminder, this is Couch Potato Theater. We're celebrating the 40th anniversary of Terminator 1984. And one of our fun segments that we have here is You Took Him Out with What? Favorite weapon or inanimate object uses a weapon, as Clarence Boddicker would say, guns, guns, guns. Everyone's got guns. And, of course, one of the famous scenes that I always enjoy is when he goes into the pawn shop / gun shop to shop for weapons here. And if you're looking at the slideshow here, I have a picture of all the guns minus the futuristic pulse rifle that he was asking for, including the 45 long slide with the laser sight. And then I like those endoskeleton future Terminators and their weapons as well. But we also we have some other inanimate objects that were used as well. But Kyle, what were some of your favorite weapons that were used in a Terminator?
Well, I'm still disappointed I couldn't bring a ray gun back from the future.
Yeah.
That's
what you see here, pal.
Yeah. That laser sighted 45 is a pretty sweet handgun. But if you're gonna go with like the inanimate object, the Terminator using its own fist to rip somebody's innards out, that's always an impressive kill.
That's true. Yes. Aaron, what about you?
Yeah, I think the laser pointer thingy-majiggy, I don't know. I'm Australian, we don't know about guns. And I think that really brought to the forefront that whole laser pointy thing.
Yeah.
I remember not seeing that before, and then suddenly,
that started becoming a prop on like every gun. And
yeah.
It's a good point. Lacey, what about you?
Well, other than Rick Rossovich and his trusty lamp, and the fact that he literally looked at Schwarzenegger and said, "Don't make me mess you up, man." I think that he was taken out, if I'm not mistaken, he was taken out by 2 windows and a television.
I think so. Yeah.
Also, I really do think that Paxton and Thompson they took a knife to a heart ripping party. Like, I mean,
they took a knife to a gun show. Basically, I'm glad you brought up the switchblade that Bill Paxton pops open to with his outfit. Good call out there.
Kevin, real quick on the laser sight. I just want to put this story out there. My father's a retired police officer, and he was on the TAC team, and he said they did some training with Navy SEALs at one point, and it was you were dead if the laser sight was on you. And he said there is no other just like stop your heart, turn you white feeling than when you look down and you see that laser sight on you.
Yeah. And I thought it was used very effectively in the Tech Nor scene when the laser sight slowly comes up to Sarah Connor's forehead, and Kyle Reese comes in and saves her in the nick of time. Great scene there, and great use of the laser sight as well. All right, next segment, the Sean Bean Award for the best death scene, guys. I'm just going to put it right there when finally Sarah Connor squishes the endoskeleton and says, "You're terminated, fucker." That's a great scene there. But we've got a lot to choose from in Terminator, but that one's my vote there. Lacey, let's start with you. Your favorite death scene.
Yeah. I gotta go with Rick Rossovich. Like just the.
Oh man, you're picking on Rick, dude.
I mean, just in his little like tidy blueies or whatever they were, like their little like
swimmers,
little plum smuggler outfit, and just
budgie smugglers.
What?
Budgie smugglers.
Okay, gotcha.
Budgie smugglers.
He just, that poor guy, he didn't stand a chance. I mean, just windows and glass shards and no protective clothing. It was just a bad thing from the beginning. I mean, Brian Thompson had it the worst, I think. But yeah, Rick, he just, that was not a good day for him.
Kyle, what about you, sir?
There is only one answer to this question, and even though it might not be the most spectacular kill in the Terminator, it starts the most historic run of kills. Bill Paxton wins this award because it starts the run of Bill Paxton getting killed by the Terminator, the Alien, and the Predator. Yeah. And nobody else in Hollywood can claim that. So
that's good.
It goes to Bill Paxton.
Aaron, did you answer this question? I don't remember if you did or not.
No, she has not.
No.
Yeah.
What,
favorite death scene?
Kill? Oh, probably just the whole. I don't know. Probably just the massacre. I'm going to put them all together and have 50 kills.
That's a good one. Yeah, the police station one, definitely.
Yeah, together.
I want to give a shout out to that. After rewatching it today, it stood out, especially the way that it was filmed. The housewife, Sarah Connor, because you see Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, walking up. First of all, his car like rolls over, crushes the toy truck, right? But he comes up and he goes, and she answers the door, and he goes, "Sarah Connor," and he brings up the laser sighting again onto her forehead. And although you don't see her getting shot, you see him shooting her in the head. And then he looks down at her corpse and continues to unload the gun in her. That one's a pretty good one there. Yes?
So
Aaron?
Going forward to being on TV, and when we had censorship, when it went onto TV, they took he only shot once, not the 3 times in Australia. Yeah. And they took out the bit where he grabs the cop and bashes his head against the door. That was taken out of the TV.
A lot of stuff had to be edited to bring it.
I remember that one. The bouncing of the head, and he only shot once. Can't remember the others, but I remember that.
Yeah, that's a good call. Good call. All right, guys. So the next segment I like here is the Kenny Loggins or John Williams best use of music or song in the movie. I'm just going to give a shout out to the whole darn soundtrack that we get from Brad Fiedel and or Feidel. I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name, but James Cameron went back to him. And, like we mentioned earlier, when Aaron and I saw Terminator live in concert, you really felt this kind of synth / percussion. It's very effective in this movie. As James Cameron coined the type of movie a tech noir, the drums is the most iconic thing about the soundtrack. Dum, 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 dum. And they carried this through to all the other films, and seeing it being played live was amazing. I don't know if you guys had a moment in the film. I'm just calling out the whole soundtrack itself that really kind of jumped out at you. Aaron, what about you? Anything jumped out to you for the music lines?
I mean, I like when they pull it back for the love scene. It's the same thing, but you take away the drums. So it's the same, but they've brought it back to taking away the threat.
Yeah.
Is a threat. It's, if you watch the John Williams doco on Disney, which we did, it's, or I did, it's like Jaws, dun, 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 dun. So the drums is, so it's the threat of what's coming. what's coming, but that's taken away when they're set in just present time. There is no before or after. They're just in the now. So I enjoyed that.
Lacey, what about you?
When it comes to scores, I think that the best scores are the ones that melt into the background seamlessly, that you don't think about it while you're watching the film. And it's entirely possible that if someone puts you on the spot and asks you that question, you don't have the answer to the best spot, but then you hear it somewhere and you immediately know where it's from. Like, that's what this is. I couldn't tell you where any of the cues were, but if you were to play one for me, I would be able to be like, oh, that was from the bar, or that was from the the car chase or something like that. So I think that's kind of where because I'm not great with music. So for me, it's just the recognition after the fact. If I can hear something and go, oh, that's from Terminator, that's the good stuff.
Gotcha. Kyle?
What's interesting here is that obviously that main theme and everything that means. But in my rewatch of this, something hit me. Is that this version of the soundtrack and the version of the songs they use is so much more 80s with the tech synth they've added in this, that they took out or played down in these themes in the later Terminator films. And I think it makes it stand out just a little bit more because it has that in there. And it really, again, it's that time capsule effect. And because it's there, but the tech synth is much more understated further on. And I think that's in the actual films. And I think that's one of the things that makes that stand out in this particular film.
Good call. I like that. Yeah. The next one we have here is, are you sure that wasn't real? Best special effects scene here. And you got to give a shout out to, of course, the Terminator endoskeleton scenes, the stop motion, and of course the Arnold Schwarzenegger puppet with the eye and the arm scenes. What were some of your favorites, Aaron?
Oh, the special effects.
Yeah,
I think not so much the stop motion, but when obviously they had it as the puppet, on top of the man or the endoskeleton.
Yeah, give it out to this guy if you're watching the slide here. He's holding up the endoskeleton above him.
So and
he's doing the Terminator walk,
Look, Stan Winston, genius, died way too early. And again, a part of Gen X, growing up with the Alien Queen, with Pumpkinhead, with pretty much everything. So again, I mean, I think all of it, even with looking at the sort of doing the eye and the crossover from that to the real Terminator, back to Arnold Schwarzenegger, maybe younger, we're more forgiving because we grew up with it. Younger generations are going to go, but I don't care. So it's, I think all of it. I think even the look of, as you said, into the future with, that's all miniatures. But again, we're a generation of more forgiveness because we grew up with that. So, all of it. To me, all of it's good.
Just a bit of trivia that I found out because I've been going down the Terminator movie rabbit hole, and I'll bring that up a little bit later. But Stan Winston actually was working on Terminator Salvation, and that happened to be his last film that he worked on. So a little bit of irony there. Lacey, what about you? Your favorite special effects scene?
Again, I think like the music, I don't get me wrong, the special effects in this, the major ones were really great. But I kind of like the stuff, I like the squibs and just the general gunfights and stuff like that, because it looks so realistic that you don't know that it's a special effect. Obviously it's a practical effect, but I liked, there was one or two of the police officers in particular, like the one guy who runs and gets shot in the back and just, he kind of does that kind of flop forward or whatever.
Right.
The flying squirrel landing, that kind of thing. And then, when, oh gosh, I've lost his name now. Not Hendrickson, the other cop.
Paul Winfield?
Winfield, yes. When he gets it in the chest, in that doorway, and you can see when he hits that door frame, that maybe he might have jumped back a little bit harder than he expected, because it really looks like he just slammed into that door frame.
Yeah.
So stuff like that.
Kyle?
For me, it's obviously this exoskeleton is an amazing thing, but it's the scene where he's repairing himself. I mean, that's just that's Stan Winston at his finest, and with creating that Schwarzenegger mask, and just because you're so, in a way, you hear Kyle Reese talking about, but then you actually see it, and you just get that little glimpse of what, and you're like, holy crap! And it's that shock value moment of it, and just the impressiveness of it, especially at that time. And like Aaron said, Stan Winston gone way too soon. He is in the legendary status, and this is just another film that puts him there.
Yeah, the effects, just everything practical, I just thought was really, really good. And I loved, there's something about the way that this performer guy, how menacing the endoskeleton was. And then when Kyle Reese puts the handmade grenade and blows it off, and that thing is still crawling. That thing is still creepy today. That's just amazing piece of special effects and practical effects there. I absolutely love that. So.
But I also loved what the Terminator saw. Which obviously somewhere someone's come up with something. Now this might all be crap, or it might mean something. Now people who are more technical than me might go, oh, well, that's a formula for this, or it's a this. But all that, when he's running and all that sort of DOS, numbers coming up and down, and what he's seeing.
The Terminator view, yeah.
The point of view of the Terminator. Then you see all the numbers, and he computes to what he's going to say. But if you watch him when he's running, it will say what he's doing. I don't know if that was just gobbledygook, or whether or not that actually has meaning for people who are a bit more tech savvy than I do. But I always was very impressed on the amount of detail that went into that.
That's a good point. Yeah, I like it. And, it seemed to be something that people started using later on. The Predator movies used it and stuff. So, yeah, that's a good call there. Well, the next thing.
So whether or not that was him, I don't know.
Yeah. So next we got the Fall Guy Award for Best Action Stunt Scene, and I've got some slides here to show some of them. I just want to give a shout out. I love when they go to the truck chase scene, and the Terminator is on the bike, and they go through that really cool tunnel. That's a famous tunnel in Los Angeles, and he's on the little motorcycle, and then it goes out a little bit, and then that scene just continues. But that particular part in the tunnel, because that's when Kyle Reese is throwing the handmade hand grenades. And then Kyle gets shot. I love that scene there. But Kyle, back to you. What were some of your favorite action stunt scenes?
The best one by far is the attack on the station. I mean, that's just so well done. And Arnold is so good in it with just how he's approaching it systematically and just taking people out with no emotion, and just in the emotional reaction from the police, because you see the fear on the actor's face. And I kind of wonder if it isn't a fear of just seeing Schwarzenegger, this huge guy coming with these guns, even though you know that, but it works so well. The scene you talked about, Kevin, is great. And I'm a fan of the future. Again, going back to that futuristic flashback, I think that was a really good action scene as well.
That's good. Lacey, what about you? Your favorite Fall Guy action scene moment?
Okay, so all of the big stunts were really amazing. The ones that made me cringe are the ones where I look at the stunt, itself, and I see the potential for like the small nicks and scratches. Like again, the Rick Rossovich stuff, like where he's in like almost nothing and he's having to like go through glass and like the television, all that kind of stuff. Or like Brian Thompson when he has to be hung from the rig to get his heart ripped out. Like those kind of stunts, the ones where you can see that the actor is doing the stunt, or at least I know it's a Keanu Reeves thing. He doesn't do stunts; he does action. But I think that those are the ones where you go, okay, that actor made the decision to not have a stand-in, And those kind of things, you can get hurt.
What about you, Aaron? What are some of your favorite Fall Guy stunt action scenes?
I think I like all the stuff in the massacre in the police station, and then, as I said, Lacey's the same. Poor Rick, he was all in his little budgie smugglers. He's I copped it all. But yeah, everybody sort of, there wasn't. A couple times you can see the difference from actor to stuntman, but no, they're all, it was all good.
Okay.
Techno, just dancing and getting pushed out of the way was hard. But you had to do it slow-mo.
Well, speaking of Technor, that falls into the next segment we have here. It's fun. This is the Star Wars Twin Suns favorite filming location or set piece. And I'm going to highlight the Technor scene here because I have a picture up here showing what it kind of looks like now. You can
we got to go to, remember that, keep that.
Yeah,
keep that.
That's going to be a visit place that we're going to go to later this year. Next year, we've got the jewelry store that it is now, but it was Technor. There we go. Got a couple of interior scenes here as well. Just a great location, and it was built, obviously, so it was great. Aaron, what is your favorite filming location or set piece? Is it Technor?
I love how she goes into the noisiest place on earth to make a phone call.
Yeah.
And just stayed in the pizza place. I remember those pizzas where you had them, and it goes back that sort of, you put the pizza on top of the thing. And then she goes into the loudest place on earth. I know she was going in there for people, but it was just very funny that it was so loud. All of it. Look, there were a lot of set pieces that were great, but yeah, the tech one is just, and also I just always remember it. You know what brought to my mind? Pico. It's on Pico. Apparently, we got to go on Pico, somewhere in Pico.
There you go. Yep. All right, Kyle, I'm going to step away just for like about 30 seconds. I'm going to have you tell me your favorite, and then Lacey, you go next, okay?
Sure.
Yeah. So, Technor. Technor and the police station are probably the two biggest locations on there. Obviously, the end within the plant and the factory works. That's thing. But I think when you talk about it, Technor and the police station are the two most famous locations within this film and the ones that stand out the most for this movie. But Lacey, what about you? What would you say?
I think I'm going to go a little bit more bookended. I think that the opening scene with Schwarzenegger, is it the observatory that's behind him when he's walking?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the opening scene where he's got the observatory in the background, that's just a great shot, And then the final scene where she drives off into the sun and this, because it's just these two kind of polar opposites. You see the coldness of the, he shows up and it's cold and blue and everything's blue and black and dark. And then the very end, you see her and she kind of represents the mother figure and, or she is the mother figure at that point. And everything is bright and sunny and warm. And I think that those locations were well chosen to give specific feelings. And I think that those were kind of cool.
I like the shout out that you just did to the Griffith Observatory. I love that place. I'd love to go back to that place. Yeah. That'd be very, very cool. Okay. So guess what came in the mail, guys? I love the fact that this happened during the Terminator Couch Potato Theater recording, that I actually got my Terminator 4K in the mail right there. Check that out.
Yay!
I was hoping it was going to arrive during this recording, and there we go. So I look forward to checking that out later.
Nice.
All right. I know this is going to be Aaron's favorite segment, Aaron, because I thought of you when we were doing this, and I know you've mentioned this before.
No,
this is if you were a non-speaking extra on set, what scene would you want to be in? And I think, Aaron, you pointed this out last year for some social media.
Oh, it was a COVID. No, I think it was a COVID. We were locked down for 2 years. And I think a friend of mine, Ed, he did it. He actually made it up. A whole thing of, 10 movies that you would be an extra in. And I
Okay.
think one of them was like me being an extra in the scene of Flash Gordon where they're all dressed in the outfits with the, things for Ming. One of them was Close Encounters. And I actually put little like arrows. One of them was from Warriors, where they're all doing the whole do you dig it when they're in the big together. And one of them, that's me. That would be me.
The picture that she's talking about is on the slideshow. If you're listening to this,
That
make sure you check
one,
out
that
the
was
video.
me.
There's a
That's who I
blonde
would have
girl.
been.
There's a blonde girl that looks like she has, is it pigtails or a ponytail?
Right.
That
Details.
Terminator is walking around while she's dancing. Aaron, I remember you circled her saying that would be me.
Yeah. It was fun. It was just all little movies that you would be in, that you would be an extra. If you could have been in a movie, what scene as an extra would you have been in? And that was me.
Nice. Now I just want to shout out too here. We also got the police station scene. That's another one I'd like to possibly recommend as well. But Lacey, what about you? What scene or extra would you like to be in?
So if it's being on set to be in the scene to see the things that are going on, I think I would love to have been maybe like one of in like the punk rock scene. That would have been like a really cool, because you've got there's a lot of setup when it comes to that kind of stunt, and that's like a really interesting thing to watch. But if it came to like what scene in the film as a person in the film would I want to be in, it would have to be something where I would survive. So I'm looking at like, I'm looking at hanging out with her while she's getting dressed, like I'm hanging out with Pugsley. I'm holding the iguana. I'm chilling out in the other room while they're getting ready. That's where I'm going to survive the film.
All right. What about you, Kyle?
Okay, first I have to do something here. This is just for you, Aaron. Can you dig it?
Yeah. And I even picked myself out. And I don't think there were any women there, but I was hiding as a man.
Yeah, there you go. For me, I'd want to be in the police station because you know what? Say, hey, I got killed by Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, I'd want to be one of the rando police officers that just gets randomly mowed down. That's a good one, Kyle. I didn't mention it, but there's a guy that's dancing in Tech Noir that's got this white blazer on with his like 80s tie on. He's kind of doing the 80s dance. That might have been a fun one to do as well. But was there any other, Kyle, that you would have mind jumping into?
I would have been one of the guys in the future. I would have been one of the rebel fighters in the future.
Okay, I like that. That's a good call there.
Right on.
Okay, the next one that we have. Does anybody have? This is what we call the Luke and Leia kiss cringeworthy moment, or do you have any pet peeves about the film, Lacey? I think you said that you did.
I mean, watching it now, I think that the only cringeworthy thing in it is the rape fantasy phone call. That's a little bit. That's just not something you would put in a film today. Well, you might, but yeah, I feel like that's just a little bit past its time.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyone else have any? I'm sorry.
No. I will say though that Rick Rossovich plays the character to perfection.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So,
Aaron, you do? What you got?
Well, actually, that scene does not worry me, and I think because he's so sweet to Sarah when she gets caught out, that he's so embarrassed that it was Sarah doing it, and she's not. She laughs, so I think it's more of. I still think Ginger wore the pants in that relationship. So obviously, because his was so tiny. So I don't find.
But you also have to remember though, when she answers the phone and she turns on, she's like, "It's the creep."
No, I know, but it's done in a very, very endearing way. Yeah. So I think with that's a running joke that they all do, and the Ginger's not giving a shit. So how can I say that? Mine is, and I've had drunk arguments about this, which goes through to the next films. Is the Terminator an individual look, or is it off an assembly line? Because if you go off Terminator, the movie, and when it goes back to the flashback or forward, it's not Arnold Schwarzenegger turning up, it's a different Terminator. And he says to her, I had to wait till he made a move to find out who he was. Why would you create an assembly line of everyone looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger when you could pick them from a mile away? They were Arnold Schwarzeneggers. The whole thing that going forward, there's now an assembly line of that model, the T1000. No, he wasn't. He was a T800 or whatever. He was two versions of it. And then you had the T1000 were all the same look. That was my pet peeve with the movies going forward.
That's a good point. Lacey, you have a comment on that?
I can answer that.
I want to say it's probably something like Cherry 3000, where it's like, or 2000, where there's like, 30 models for each time they, so it's probably something, that's what.
Well, and you're going on with the fact that that movie was never going to have a sequel, and then it did. So this is a storyline that ended,
right?
And then suddenly they're going to move forward. They want to use Arnold Schwarzenegger to keep it going. So now they have to make lots of him.
Kyle, you have an answer to this apparently.
Oh, Kyle's waiting.
Let's go back to the Terminator that had Christian Bale in it. If you remember right, they are on a assembly line. And
yeah, I know.
Whose skin is
Terminator Salvation. Yeah,
Terminator Salvation. It's all Arnold skins.
Yeah, but that doesn't make sense. So that doesn't make sense with the fact that Kyle Reese says, I had to make a move on him. They would know that. They would have had pictures of all the different Terminators.
The question will be, this again comes maybe even in the time frame aspect of it, though, and what they would, and we are talking about wibbly wobbly timey wimey stuff here. The future gets changed in Terminator 2, so in an aspect, so we don't know.
And there's also
going on this timeline in Terminator.
Right, but in the second one, because he comes back as the protector, right? So they say that they hijacked him and like reprogrammed him, right? They found one and reprogrammed it.
Yeah.
But it throws out the theory of the first movie. So this is all because they now make this whole story about Arnold Schwarzenegger, not about the story itself. This is now Arnold Schwarzenegger's hijacked it because they want him to come back as the Terminator. So now they've rewritten it. Otherwise, Kyle Reese would have gone, I'm going to get the one with the German accent. Yeah. We know what he looks like. He didn't, because remember they were rubber skin and they were easy to pick. Now these ones sweat and have bad breath. I don't know what he looks like. Otherwise, they got into Skynet. They blew it up. They had everything about the Terminators. And that's why they sent them back.
You might have just answered your own question because he talks about these being new ones. Maybe he hasn't even seen one.
Right, yeah.
No, but this is at the end of Skynet. They would have all been known.
I just always
hours of it. Get wine out because you can be there for an hour.
Yeah, I know. My pet peeve in rewatching it, as much as I love Linda Hamilton, I can't stand her hairstyle. It just bugs the crap out of me. It's rough. I do like the look she has in the Jeep though, with the the jazzercise, headband or whatever. She looks really cute in that, but I just couldn't stand her hairstyle. It's a pet peeve that I have there. So. But speaking of James Cameron, guys, the next segment that we have here as we start to wrap things up here is the Titanic I'm King of the World career moment. What actor or, crew member in this movie is at the top of their career, or was anything else in this movie trending, newsworthy, tabloid popular when this movie was released? And you can make an argument for both Schwarzenegger and Cameron. This film comes out. Obviously, Schwarzenegger made a big impact with Conan. But you would have to say that this film is the one that probably pushed him over as the next superstar. And Cameron, even though he obviously had some issues filming Aliens, we'll talk about that in the next Couch Potato Theater, his name was out there, and he was making a name for himself with movies and stuff. But was there anything else other than these two, unless you do want to go on these two a little bit more, that jumped out at you? Kyle?
I'm going to say Michael Biehn. I think if he hadn't self-sabotaged his own self, which he admits to, he's done it. He admitted to it big time on the Michael Rosen Inside of You podcast. That when he was on that, he talks about how he sabotaged his own career with drugs and other things. Between this and Alien, a few years later, he could have been a huge action star, and he sabotaged his own career. But I think he was coming out of this as a young, handsome, this guy is a legit actor action, could be a legit actor action star. And I think it could have been, a lot of people could argue Aliens, and that's, I completely agree that could be the case. But I think as far as King of the Mountain in their career, it might be for him.
What about you, Aaron? What do you think? Who's
I agree with that. I think that well, because he came into Aliens in the last minute, but he made that character exactly what he should have been in Aliens.
Yeah.
And then you'll talk about that later. But yes, I think that's a king of a moment, was definitely for him. She was lovely, but she never really did anything big after that. What she did,
it's Terminator 2 for her. It's Terminator 2 for her.
Well, yeah, but that's her big one, because she did the body transformation. That's what made her huge, was the whole fact that she did got ripped. That's what made her big. Was Terminator 2, not so much Terminator.
Good call. Well, Lacey, what about you? Any King of the World moments for anyone?
Yeah, I think that Rick Rossovich, he comes out of this. No, I'm serious. He comes out of this. He gets Top Gun. He's got Roxanne. He's got Navy SEALs. Like, he comes out of this.
Navy SEALs with Michael Biehn, actually. Yeah.
Stuff that comes out about it. Like, I love him. He's amazing. He's one of my favorite actors. He's amazing. He's so much fun.
Newsflash. Lacey's crushing on Rick Rossovich hard right now.
How many times has she mentioned his name?
I know, right?
His name.
Wait a minute. Then
Lacey's mentioned his name, we'd all be really drunk.
Yeah. I'm just gonna say this, and if that's the case for Lacey, this isn't Apex Mountain for Rick Rossovich. It's Top Gun.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right. The next one we got here is
tidy whities. It's those little pants that she loved him in.
The next segment we have here is the Aliens Nuke It from Orbit hot take. Do you have a hot take about this film? I'm going to lead this off because this kind of goes back to when you and I first started dating, Aaron. We had a little disagreement. It was a friendly disagreement, but I've come around on it. I found out that my wife is right a lot.
Was I right? Oh, good.
Yeah. So I want to talk about, after watching Terminator and recently Terminator 2 Judgment Day, because after we saw the Terminator in live concert, I watched Terminator 2. And I started thinking about Terminator 2. First of all, I don't think Terminator 2 deserves its R rating. Yes, it has some, maybe a couple F words here and there and stuff. But after rewatching Terminator is hardcore violence. Terminator, like I don't think anyone gets killed in Terminator 2. And the original Terminator is much more gritty and violent. And I got to go with you on this, Aaron. Originally, Terminator 2, and everyone for the longest time, and there's still a lot of people that say that Terminator 2 is the better film. It's one of the best sequels of all time, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to argue that it's a good sequel, that it's not a good sequel, but the original Terminator is still the best. So that's my hot take. Anyone else have a hot take about this film? Kyle?
I'm just going to add on something to your hot take. The reason why Terminator 2 has an R, Tipper Gore. Because that was, think about it, at that time, what was going on in the United States. Yep. She was getting the advisory labels on all the music. How we were rating things then was so much different. Now it probably is a PG-13 movie.
It totally is. Yeah.
It was R-rated because of what they were doing with rating systems at the time. I will say this. I think the difference between the two is, I think the original Terminator is the better science fiction film, but I think Terminator 2 is the more powerful film with what it's dealing with in that particular film. And I think it stands out more because of some of the performances in it, with Linda Hamilton's performance in Terminator 2, Edward Furlong's performance in it, obviously Schwarzenegger's performance in it, and even with the technology of the T-1000 being so memorable. I just think that those are all things that add up to why a lot of people do feel Terminator 2 is the better film. You add in the Guns N' Roses soundtrack aspect of it as well. It was a more pop culture film and blockbuster type film.
Aaron, your thoughts, any hot takes? And I'm assuming Terminator 1 is still your favorite of the two.
Yes. Yeah, no, totally. I mean, okay, so Terminator 2, the whole thing of it brought CGI to the forefront in the sense of it started. I know a lot of people liked it because it got all gooey and family orientated, and it was a father and son thing. And for me, that doesn't do it for me at all. So the one scene in Terminator 2 where they go into the hospital and she's escaping and then she sees him and all that stuff is still the best scene. But all the thing with him and Arnold Schwarzenegger and shooting people in the knees and all that makes me want to go there. That's me. That's me. And I like the darkness and it's too Disney for me. There you go. The second one.
What about you, Lacey?
Well, I think that Aaron's right. I think that the CG in that was kind of at the forefront. Like that's the T-1000 with Robert Patrick's character with the whatever, the goo, whatever he's made of. I think that was like the shiny new thing, right? I think a lot of people liked Terminator 2 because it was the shiny new thing. Also, as far as the ratings go, back at that point, if a film contained a minor in danger, like putting a minor in danger because Eddie Furlong's character was 13 at the time, or in the film, that's like a significant point. Like it doesn't matter how many times you say the F word, if there's a minor put in danger, like that's going to be an R rating. Or back at that time, I did a paper on that. Anyway, but yeah, so I think that a lot of people, it's kind of like the new shiny thing. Everyone wanted to see the new shiny thing.
Right.
I just look. Terminator's got Michael Biehn. It's got Rick Rossovich in it. It's got like so many fun people. You've got Bill Paxton. You've got. I mean, you've got so many people that I would watch over and over again. And I love the fact that when they brought back, I guess it was the fourth one maybe, where they kind of renewed Schwarzenegger's face and like revisited the scene with the punks and all that kind of stuff. That was kind of fun, like just seeing those guys back again and everything. So
I just go ahead, Lacey. Sorry.
No, that was all. I was trailing off.
So just the whole thing about I know again with 2, it was bigger, like everything. Aliens is bigger. This is bigger. It's all bigger. I saw Gladiator 2. It's bigger.
Yeah.
Terminator 2 is more action. It's not a noir film. It's not dark at all. Really. I mean, I know you say it's powerful and we've got premonitions of what could happen and the blowing up with the hotness, and it became a very funny meme during Australian summers of her burning. But I still think making him human ruins it for me.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing is they had that pop culture thing going on because they had a motorcycle tie-in, they had the leather jacket tie-in, they had the sunglasses. Those were Ray-Bans, right? The wraparound Ray-Bans. It was like it kind of went like huge.
Little commercial
placement.
Yeah.
Like product placement, and this was nuts.
Kyle's been waiting to say something. What you got, Kyle?
I got a hot take, but it's also going to lead us into our next segment, Kevin.
Okay.
My hot take is this: the best canon building thing that happened after the original Terminator wasn't a movie, it was a TV show.
Well, let's get into that. Good segue there, Kyle. What happens next? This is where we talk about the sequels, prequels, the couch potato worthy, and let's go ahead and mention a plethora of sequels that we got here. Of course, we got Terminator 2, which we've been discussing, Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, Terminator Salvation, the Terminator Sarah Connor Chronicles TV series, followed by Terminator Genesis, Terminator Dark Fate, and just recently this year, Terminator Zero, the animated series on Netflix. Kyle, I'm going to go ahead and let you take it here because I wanted to basically get your guys' thoughts on the sequels, but I did want to give you a quick timeline first. Terminator 2 came out in 91. Terminator 3 came out in 2003. Then followed by the Sarah Connor Chronicles for 2 seasons from 2008 to 2009. Then Terminator Salvation also came out in 2009, followed by Terminator Genesis in 2015, Terminator Dark Fate in 2019, and then as of this year, 2024, Terminator Zero. Kyle, I know what you're getting at here, and I'm just going to showcase something real quick here because I'm proud of these, is that I got the Sarah Connor Chronicles Blu-ray season 1 and 2 right there. please discuss what you were about to highlight for us.
So as important as Terminator 2 is, and it's an important film, but building on the world, and I'm gonna just say I'm not a fan of Terminator 3. It's average to me at best. I enjoyed Terminator Salvation. I thought it was a good action story film, but it still didn't feel Terminator. Genesis was rough. Dark Fate was rough. Terminator Zero is interesting because it's a different aspect of Terminator. It makes you look at some other different things. And Timothy Olyphant voicing voicing the main Terminator in that show is, of course, always good. You put Timothy Olyphant in anything, I'm good with it. But Terminator: The Sarah Connor Chronicles, I think, one, Lena Headey as Sarah Connor was fabulous in this. A very underrated Brian Austin Green performance in this show. But truthfully, Summer Glau's Terminator is still the most intriguing Terminator we have had. And it was the most complex Terminator we had, and we never got the full answers about this because the show was killed by Fox, who at the time was killing any decent science fiction show they had on their plate.
Right about that, Kyle.
This show ends on a massive cliffhanger that could have, if they would have done a third and final season, could have been spectacular. It's a great cast. It's a great show. It's intelligently written and just has so many intriguing things in it. In my opinion, is the deepest, most well thought out addition to the Terminator universe.
And you had Shirley Manson, the singer of Garbage, in the second season as a very ominous character.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Lacey, your thoughts on the sequels? Do you have any favorites?
I will watch Anton Yelchin. Well, when he was alive, I would watch Anton Yelchin do anything, like read a phone book.
Terminator Salvation. Yeah.
Yep, love that. I mean, I dig Summer Glau doing anything, and Garrett Dillahunt, right? Yeah, so that's kind of awesome. I think that they all have their bits and bobs. There was something I got a group of nerdy film folks that we actually put together the perfect cast by using all of the whole series, and we pulled all of our favorites and kind of created our own, and that's kind of a fun thing to do if you have a minute to think about it. So yeah, I think that Terminator Salvation, probably the two that stand out for me.
Gotcha. You know, it's funny, Aaron. I remember you and I actually went to the Man's Chinese Theater to see Dark Fate, and we walked away from it going, you know. But your thoughts on the sequels?
Just a quick one. I want to ask Lacey something. What's his name? Anton?
Yeah, Anton Yelchin.
How did you do Green Room?
I have it. I have not seen it. I have it. It's one of those ones where I know it's going to be rough, and I have to have like 3 Disney movies.
You are never going to sit through that film.
I have it. Yeah, and
also, tell you now, it's nasty. It's great and very insane. I'm just going to warn you now. Just be careful.
And I also have Alpha Dog, which is
Blanky.
Yeah,
I liked him in Fright Night. He was good in Fright Night.
I saw Fright Night. That was
Odd Thomas.
That's the level of fright that I can handle.
27 Club
and Green Room that are they're sitting there. I've got them. I just have not.
No.
Yeah.
No, all right. No. Anyway, my go. So I'm going through. What are we now? 55. So I've decided that I'm going to like what I like. And I'm starting to pull away through, movies that I sit there and I go, this is what it is, and then the rest never existed for me. So I'm like that with, the Star Wars movies. There were 3. With this, there was 1, and the others. Okay. I don't need extra knowing this and that. I'm just going to keep Terminator as one thing. I love Arnold Schwarzenegger as just a killing machine, and that's it. Don't need anything else.
Okay.
That's a stamp in time. That is for me. So, you know what? I mean, look, I don't mind 2. There are moments in 2. I probably wouldn't watch it again. The rest of them are a blur. I can't remember. I think I like Salvation a bit. But again, as to make it just to keep the
the whole movie as pure and whole, it's just a Terminator for me.
Lacey, real quick.
Yeah, I was gonna say the other thing is the pinball machine for Terminator 2. Awesome is my favorite. Like, that was the one. Like that's the one when like all the guys were playing D&D after the place closed, and we had, I would always have the guys just unlock the door for me, and I would play that for hours. Yeah.
So I'm going to go with Kyle. The TV series is highly underrated, and for anyone I know that's seen it, enjoys it, and it really gets into the lore. Some really good performances, and yes, it did leave a cliffhanger. But I recently was doing a rewatch of some of the ones I didn't remember, and I had recently watched Terminator 2, so I knew what was going on. But I watched Terminator 3, Terminator Salvation, and Terminator Genesis more recently. And what was interesting though is I was watching Terminator 3. It's kind of a guilty pleasure for me. But what's interesting is so Claire Danes is in that film, and it gets a dark ending because they don't stop Skynet. You know, her father is in the Air Force and is behind Skynet, and they have to get to a fallout shelter before things happen, and they do. What I found interesting though is that Terminator Salvation is basically the sequel to that when you do it, because Claire Danes didn't return. Instead, you got Mandalorian director
John Favreau.
No, I'm sorry, the female daughter of
Bryce Dallas Howard.
Bryce Dallas Howard plays the same character that Claire Danes does in Terminator Salvation. It takes place after everything has happened, and then of course so there's a little continuity to that. But also too, what's interesting in Terminator 3 is that he mentions that they're changing stuff here because he ends up killing. He says in conversation, because Arnold Schwarzenegger is playing the protector again. It's saying that I killed you later on in the future, so we're changing things a little bit here. And what's interesting is in Dark Fate, that's what happens in Dark Fate, that he ends up killing John Connor. And then you kind of wonder, like, well, what happens to a Terminator once they go back in time and kill their prey, and you get a little bit of that in Terminator in Terminator Dark Fate. But it was interesting watching those again and doing that. But when it comes to the sequels, Terminator 2 I like, but something about Terminator Salvation really kind of sits with me. I love the actress Blood Young. What's her name? She was
Moon Bloodgood.
Moon Bloodgood. She was good in that. And it's some good characters in that as well. I would probably say that Salvation is my favorite of the other films and such. So yeah. All right, guys. This, of course, is to wrap things up. This is Couch Potato Theater, Terminator 1984, celebrating its 40th anniversary. Let's get your final thoughts. Aaron, let's start with you.
Oh, okay. Final thoughts on it's great.
Terminator.
It's brilliant. I could watch it today. Love 3/4 of it intensely. Last quarter, I could go to the bathroom. And I love it as a standalone film. The end.
Nice. Lacey, final thoughts on Terminator.
Really enjoyable. Holds up. I was very impressed with the 4K. It was the sound quality, the lights versus dark, the shadows. It was all really, really well done. I think that Cameron did well to wait until he had. The whole thing was that he had to wait until he had time to actually do all of them at once. And I think that that was the right move because it looks amazing.
Nice. Kyle, final thoughts on Terminator 1984.
Not a perfect movie, but a movie that is historic because this is one of those key point movies where it changed things. It put Schwarzenegger on the map. It put James Cameron on the map. It was one of those movies, again, I think it grew from its original theatrical release on home video and has become a pop culture fixture. I mean, I'll Be Back is probably three of the most well-known words in pop culture, if not just worldwide at this point. It changed the bar, I think, a little bit for science fiction as well. And to create massive Hollywood tentpole franchise out of it, whether you like the sequels or not, or whatever, however you feel about it. To get that many sequels in a TV show, it's a massive IP, and somewhere down the line, somebody's going to revisit this IP and do something more with Terminator, whether Arnold's involved or not. But it's one of those things that it's one of those IPs I think will exist in one fashion or another throughout time, and somebody will do more with it because it's such an interesting concept. And I think especially when we look at our world today with AI, revisiting this film is kind of like a cold glass of water splashed on your face reality. It's like we're closer to this than we may ever truly want to admit we are.
Right.
We might joke about it, but in the back of our mind, we're like, yeah, Skynet's not that far away, possibly. And it's a little scary to think about.
Yeah, it's definitely held up for me, and it was nice to get the Terminator 4K mailed to me during this podcast. It was great. Yeah, it was wonderful seeing it on the big screen with you, Aaron, and seeing the live orchestra with it. And what's funny too is we have the Santa Barbara International Film Festival, which is highly touted among a lot of the Hollywood community, and it's coming up in February, I think it is. But they bought over one of our older theaters, and they fixed it up, and they gave it a great screen and sound system and great seats. And they're actually showcasing Terminator 2 nights in a row, this Friday and Saturday. So it's very tempting to go see it again on the big screen, because I think I had not seen it on the big screen until I saw it with you, Aaron, there with the live orchestra. So it might be worth seeing it again. What was interesting too, by the way, I just want to mention when I was rewatching Terminator Genesis, that was their attempt to kind of reboot the franchise, sort of. And it was just weird because like they go back to 1984 at the Griffith Observatory scene. They have 3 different characters playing the 3 punks, and then you have old, nice protector Arnold Schwarzenegger trying to kill and take out the killing machine from 84 Terminator, and then you have Daenerys Targaryen, that actress play the
Emilia Clarke.
Emilia Clarke. It was just weird. That's why probably one of the reasons why it didn't do well. But Terminator 1984 has definitely done well, and appreciate you guys all hanging around with us here, celebrating the 40th anniversary of Terminator 1984. This is the Fandom Podcast Network. Let us know how we can get a hold of you. Aaron, you're on social media. You are on Instagram, correct?
Yes.
Where are you? How can we get a hold of you there?
I don't know. Aaron Gill 666. There you go.
On Instagram. There you go. Lacey, how can we find you?
I am Lacy Pants on all the places. I'm the Lacy Pants on Instagram because I don't know how to Instagram anymore. I'm also I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on also Letterboxd. So all the places.
Nice. All right, Kyle. What about you?
You can find me, of course, here all over the place on the Fandom Podcast Network. You can find me on X at AKyleW. You can find me on Blue Sky at AKyleW. You can find me on Instagram and Threads at AKyleFandom, and you can find me on Facebook. There's probably other places too. I can't keep track.
You can find me on all the social medias at Spartan_Phoenix, with the exception of Blue Sky. I'm at Spartan Phoenix, and Fandom Podcast Network is also now on Blue Sky, so make sure you check that out. And please check it out. If you're listening to this podcast, please check out our YouTube channel where you can watch the video that we are doing right now. Please subscribe, share out, comment. We'd love to hear from you guys. And fpnet.podbean.com is our audio link for our audio podcast, and Fandom Podcast Network is also on Instagram and X as well, and on Facebook. And so make sure you check that out. And also too, if you love what you are watching, please support us on TeePublic. Search Fandom Podcast Network on TeePublic. We got t-shirts of all of our shows up there. We get a little kickback from these sales here. Helps us keep the lights on here and keep Skynet away. So there you go. I'd like to, first of all, thank everyone here for helping us out. Kyle, as always, thank you very much. And Lacey, thank you again, as always. And, of course, I'd like to thank my lovely wife, Erin, for joining us here for the 40th anniversary of Terminator. And don't forget, we're going to be back for Aliens, celebrating Aliens, and the new documentary that came out called Aliens.
Goes for all 10
Expanded.
hours of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And don't forget, also as part of this James Cameron, we will be doing The Abyss as well.
Yes,
I've
definitely.
never seen it.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Until next time, we will see you on the couch. Thank you and goodbye, everyone.